Hello, friends, and welcome to UA Legends, the podcast where each episode shines a spotlight on a hidden gem of the user acquisition world. I'll be your host, Adam, and together with my guests, we're going to deep dive into the wonderful world of user acquisition. We're going to tackle pressing industry topics and discuss the secrets behind my guests' successes. Please don't forget to follow us on AppsFlyer's YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple, or Amazon podcast channels. Okay, that's enough from me. Let's get on with it. Okay, Anh, thank you very much for joining me today. Did I get that right? I so got that wrong, didn't I?
No, very close, very close. You're smiling, so that's good. I think I always tell everyone that if you think about saying my name when Joker's smiling, as much as you can smile, that's normally get it right, like 100%. So you're smiling when you're saying it. This brings some joy to you.
I think my pitch went very strange though. So it's Anh?
Anh.
Okay. I like it. We got it. All right. Why don't we start with like the whole interview scenario, which I seem to like to start with on this. If we can dive into like how you got into user acquisition, you know, and your interests, what makes you tick? Where did you start?
So I started my career in an e-commerce company in Berlin in very early day. So working in a company named Foodpanda, I was running SEO and SEM. That's a very early day of running performance marketing. You have like a huge army of people. The more country you have, the more languages it's, the more people that you have.
Was it app at that stage or web-based?
It's a web-based.
Yeah. Okay.
So
cool.
that's how early it is. And,
nice.
And the way that you do performance marketing is very different. It's very manual work and so on. I learned a lot in that, work day and night. I think that has been one of the special moments. And I got to
presumably it's all like UTM based there. So it's all sort of parameters in the URL that gets passed through and all of that kind of thing, right?
Correct. And you do all sort of crazy stuff. But this is, if you think about it, it's a golden day of web.
Yeah.
So every single product or company is on web. Your main traffic is search. Even Facebook advertising is a new thing. We already started to test. Then after that, I got to gaming. I went to Rovio and later on to wargaming. And that's when my first officially being part of the UA kind of community. And that was also the early day for Rovio when they moved from a premium game to a free-to-play.
Sure,
so product marketing, the whole operation model need to change. We were a smaller team. I learned a lot from like great people that I have ever worked with, and we always kind of.
I kind of had this view of Rovio that it was all like organic, like all of the traffic was organic, but there was a lot of paid as well.
It was doing the let's say the premium game, yes. So the classic Angry Birds is like 99 cents, and you get the game. That was like virally successful, but I think when they moved to free to play, they have to redoing a lot of that. So there's like Angry Bird IP, there's non-Angry Bird IP. We launched Angry Bird 2. We spent a lot of money on UA back then. The UA team was a lot smaller, so that's kind of like very different from my early day in e-com, where you have like a huge 100 people in the marketing, and then you're running like a $100 million yearly budget for Angry Bird 2, and you have like, I don't know, a handful of 2-3 people that doing it. So
amazing.
That was super fun, and I think that kind of get me hooked into UA, and I have been happy ever since.
Amazing. All right, so you're in your current role?
So currently I'm leading up the Grow marketing team in Wolt. We are a DoorDash company, got acquired a few years ago. As you know, that DoorDash is the market leader in delivery service in the US. And with Wolt, which we are very strong for the EMEA and the Asian regions, our role, or my role, is to overseeing the team that looking after the acquisition, engagement, organic growth across B2C and B2B.
Amazing, amazing. It's funny. I don't know much about the food delivery business, but I kind of dug in a little bit before this interview because I was looking forward to it and I wanted to find out more. And I was actually amazed to see that the entire food delivery app industry is expected to reach $213 billion by 2030, which is incredible. I mean, that's really quite something. Obviously I think it also split it down into regions, and China was like the biggest region, and obviously closely followed by the US, which would make sense. But I mean, it sort of really opened my eyes to the sheer size of this market and what's involved with it. But I mean, for me, how does it, and this is, I think for me, it's super exciting because you've had a gaming background as well and the ecom background, and now you've moved into the food delivery side. So I'm really interested to know, like, what you see as the differences and the nuances between all three of those, and does food delivery sort of fall under more ecom or more gaming, and how have you found it?
I would say the food delivery or delivery apps is kind of the hybrid in between gaming and ecom. Ecom is a very web focused. That was the starting point. I think nowadays there's a lot of ecom companies that going more to app first. Gaming is app first. So that's what I'm saying when I think about it. But the biggest difference, I think,
in terms of they were established sort of bricks and mortar companies, and then they've had to get involved with web as times have changed, and now they've had to get involved with app.
Correct. I mean that, and if you think about a company like Zalando in Europe or Amazon's, like they have always started with the web first before they moved to app.
Yeah.
And for food delivery, it's a hybrid, and the biggest difference between delivery apps and gaming is about the product itself. Gaming is a very global product.
Yeah.
I mean, delivery product is also very global, but there's a geographical hyperlocal limitation on that.
Well, presumably there's no point in putting out an ad creative with a restaurant that doesn't exist in your area.
Exactly. But gaming is like, in theory, if you want to, you have a gaming soft launch. If you want to, in Philippines or in Canada, if you want to get it live in Australia, in Netherlands, you can do it like with a switch.
Sure.
But with app or delivery app, it's a lot more complex. It's about it's not just about I want to go to Netherlands or I want to go to Germany. I can just open it up. It's actually going even further for hyperlocal. Is you have to also set up the operations in Berlin. You have to start signing off the marketplace. So you sign off the merchants, the restaurant, the grocery store in a certain area of Berlin. You're trying to start acquiring more courier, and then you start to try to acquire customer. Well, it's a marketplace, it's supply and demand, so you go both.
Yeah, the more geographically segmented you can be, I guess that makes it hyper focused and hyper. It makes sense to a user. Like you're giving them something that they're actually looking for, as opposed to we have all of this that half of which you can't use. It makes an awful lot of sense. Yeah,
correct. And it comes down to the conversion rate, right? I mean, in gaming, your payer conversion is about, let's say, 2 to 4%. 4% is a very good game.
Yeah,
and you have to lean on a lot for getting money from the whales, the heavy payers, because your app it's global. So that's a reality. That's a trade-off that you have to deal with. For our hyperlocal, if you do it really well, like you and me, we live in different area of the city. Like if we open the app and you get the right content, the right merchants, the right restaurants, the right grocery store that fit your need, potentially you're going to make more order. And there's going to be more people in your delivery area that's going to make orders. So the conversion rate for us is 2-digit high. And
but do you also have? I mean, it's more on the product side, I guess. But do you have any form of like if it's raining in a specific area or something like that? So sort of timed push notifications to say, "Hey, it's a wet day. Come and order dinner from us," kind of thing.
Well, it's go even deeper than that. I mean, we have own sort of data for weather base that tie into our product build. Like we can even get the courier to go to work, get the merchants to prepare for for the higher demand, and then of course we get the user to make more
Yeah,
purchase. And we
amazing.
also try to acquire the user based on the kind of weather. We have done that sort of automation in the past, so it can be both the acquisition and the engagement side. It's a whole machine of how you want to go very deep into
So
that. And
if it's that granular, how do you do that without having a team like that's insane size?
yeah, I mean, this is where the dilemma came when I first joined Wolt, when it was like a very small startup, and the benchmark is probably like, hey, should we build the marketing or grow marketing or performance marketing team similar to how the other e-commerce companies like 50, 100, 200 people. And coming from gaming, that's like, no, you would never do it. You're not supposed to be building like a heavy team for very like channel specific. And plus, like this is a hybrid between app and mobile. App and web. You want to also build a very lean, so you can actually controlling and moving the budget between channel, optimizing it
for whatever's working immediately.
For whatever working. That's the best thing about gaming that is have. So you have one person focus on one game. And for us, it's like one game is like one country. It's different retention model, different kind of products.
Which makes
features.
it very hard not to have like hundreds of people for user acquisition, surely.
Yeah, but I decided to build a linear setup, similar to how gaming is. So having like a generalist rather than a channel specialist. And with that in mind, you can potentially like, okay, here's the 5 country that you have, potentially considering it to be 5 games. Back then when I was in gaming, I worked on 5 or 6, 7 games. I don't see why not that I cannot do the same in both.
Yeah,
so having like a person who being a generalist, owning the budget for that country, owning the budget for that region, owning all of the channel. Of course, you have to build a very strong data foundations.
I was going to say, I think the biggest dependency on that is visualization, right? I mean, you have to be able to have enough clear visibility of how everything is performing to be able to say, right, we need to move budget to Meta, or we need to move budget to Google, or that kind of to be able to act on it quick enough. You need that visualization.
Correct. And that's the biggest learning that I get from gaming, because you master on your attribution, your data setup.
Yeah,
and you have
it's not just attribution though, right? I mean, you generally speaking, you would build like a whole internal BI within gaming that you would have access to absolutely every metric within that comes from the app, post install and everything else, but also tied to the campaigns that you've got from the user acquisition side. So you'd be able to see everything that's going on across the entire ecosystem of the app. Have you built that out from Wolt's perspective?
Yeah, we did. I was lucky enough that we got one of the best data tech person from my previous gaming company that joined us. and if you may think about it, I would probably not be able to survive if I didn't have him. And I think we built together the very similar setup. All of the post-install event. Like if you look at our Explore on Looker, you would see that it's like hundreds of thousands of metrics that we track. It's very similar, or actually even more extensive than gaming. And what it helps is that the UA manager come in every day. They don't have to question if I trust this data. Like back in my early career in gaming, I have to spend half a day just to like pulling report from different sources, different CSV, put it into a giant Excel before I can actually execute.
I was having this conversation the other day with some CFOs actually, and they're sort of saying, how do we trust the data that we're being given? And it's like, well, you can't. You have to dive into it. You have to be sure of each of those data sources in order to be able to say that this is right. It's very difficult, to just be handed data and follow it blindly. I think is scary.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's not just for you as a marketing team. It's also for your product, your CFO, your CEO. because that's a single sort of truth. Like you're not gonna, you don't want your CEO or CFO to do their own kind of data pool or queries, and then you have a different data. Everyone needs to look at the same number. So I spent my first 2 to 3 months with our data person rebuilding everything before we start to scale.
But also definitions. That's a big one that I found is you all have to be aligned as to what an install is, what a reinstall is, so that those, because they're quite easy to interpret in different ways, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that was like a fun time. I miss it. I miss building that from day one. But I think that kind of same system that we built about 5-6 years ago is still the foundation of what we have today. We built, of course, a lot more complex layer on top, but the kind of dashboard that everyone come in every day, like it's the way of working, the way of interpreting the data is the same. Like my team save like every day, few hours a day, just don't have to deal with any of the data problem. They can just come in, look at the number, execute. That's the only way for you to build this sort of a setup at scale. And that to answer your question, how I don't have to hire an army of 100 people to make that happen.
Yeah, because you have the underlying data. But do you think as a company that gives you a sort of secret sauce, as it were, in against the competition? If you're saying all of the competition is acting with more of a retail model than a gaming model, does that mean you have the jump on them to a certain extent?
I would say probably. I can't say that how every single company is set up, but I do think that I have seen some competitors that used to have a much bigger performance marketing team. And over the last few years, they have been like restructuring and shrinking it down to make it more efficient. Because back in the day, they work like the model is similar to the first company that I ever worked in Berlin, like more than 10 years ago. And now I think they are a lot closer to where we are organically. And I think as a CMO, we start to realize that it's an inefficiency from having so many people doing like small stuff and not efficient.
Yeah. So lots of people focused in lots of niche areas. It makes it very difficult to see that more holistic view that you're talking about with the sort of generalists that go in for different regions. It's really interesting. So what would you say, actually, before I get onto that, so gaming, obviously, with the amount of data that gaming has, they're sort of very good at predicting events and that kind of thing, and certainly payers, because that's obviously what gaming's focused around anyway. So have you built lots of predictive models and everything, as you're following the gaming methodology, so to speak?
We did. We did in a way that we're trying to also building our own LTV model. But then, of course, the difference that we have is that back in the funniest one is before I left gaming, we were working on a buy till you die model. It's a very well-known public model that a lot of the partners trying to upsell to the gaming company to try. Now, the problem with that is that it's built for a product that have a very high conversion rate or high recurring purchase, which if you apply that for gaming is very different.
Yeah.
And so that's why in gaming, like every single game has sort of a tailored LTV model, predictive model, because their conversion rate is so low. They actually try to predict, to model out based on a smaller subset of user. Well, for us, outside of gaming, you may be surprised that the e-com or delivery apps, the conversion rate is so much higher. So we would be able to apply that sort of a model or make our customized version of that. Now, how do we use it into our everyday? Well, the LTV model is good because it's a safeguard, but it doesn't have to be the only thing that the UA manager looking at, or it doesn't have to be the first thing that they look at in the morning, because we have all of the number that we are confidently saying that, hey, day 1, day 7, if the cost is like this, if the conversion is like this is how the number is going to be.
So you don't necessarily work to ROAS?
We do work on ROAS, but not in the extent of gaming for saying that I need to have this 7-day ROAS or 1-day ROAS.
Yeah, okay.
Because
so
our
you
LTV
need to make sure you are getting return on ad spend, but not so specifically as gaming do.
Not so specifically as gaming, but because our LTV is a little higher. So you cannot, and the retention is a lot longer, and this is the fun part about it. that you can have a lot of room to be able to work around. And that's why, like, if we do it right, we get the new user in, we know for the fact that they're going to stick around, they're going to convert.
Right. Okay.
So the kind of like whale hunting with day 1 and day 7 ROAS that is in gaming is a different kind of part comparing to a different kind of approach comparing to what we're doing in delivery.
Interesting. It sounds fascinating. Actually, it's like almost starting gaming from scratch again in a whole new area. Like, is that part of the reason why you took this position? I'm interested. Like, was gaming close to your heart, or did you? What happened? Did you kind of fall into this? How did the move go? And do you regret moving away from gaming?
Well, honestly, gaming has always been a big part of mine in terms of how do I find my interest. A lot of my best friend or close network is still come from gaming, and I learn from them every time. I'm still part of the UA society, which is majority.
We've met a few times at gaming events. So
it's a gaming event. So you see. You see how much I'm into gaming, and I think like talking to gaming people is still one of the most innovative people that I have ever met. Like, if you want to know what is the latest trend in marketing, gaming is the first one that's going to tell you. That's why I want to keep the gaming people close, because I learn from them every time. But the reason why I moved, I have been in
but then
different gaming companies.
Sorry, there must be elements of them learning from you too, like in the way that you're finding these new areas and splitting off the region approach and everything else. There must be learnings that can be taken the other way, surely.
I think so. I think last time when I talked to a few of my gaming friends, they asked me about similar question, and what I told them is that even outside of gaming, there are a few things that we do a lot more. We spend beyond the UA. We spend beyond the UA channel. So that means that you have to master your holistic attribution. We also be a lot more hyperlocal on the targeting, hyperlocal on the creative. Because if we do it right, the conversion is so much higher. And I think that's the part that gaming doesn't do. Like, even in the biggest gaming company, you still do a very global generic content or asset that can be like fast scale, but you don't try to very localize it like at scale. Yeah. And like, believe it or not, like gaming, you have a lot of media money to be able to make that happen. But I think
does that mean that you're creating like even more creatives than gaming? Like, I mean, does that mean the team size from user acquisition maybe isn't as big, but the creative side, the creative artists and that kind of stuff is like massive?
Well, we have both the in-house designer and agency that we use. So, well, the amount of asset that we have globally for 27 countries is in terms of tens of thousands a month. So it's a lot. It's all localized, so different size variations and whatnot. We build a lot of we build different kind of automated systems to make that happen. And that's one of the things that I highly advocate for the gaming to try. And I think the last piece is about the engagement part. Like, that's something that I never done or never pay attention in the gaming, that how do we engage users? What happened after you acquire? Like, do you retain them? Do you nurture them? In delivery app, that's as important as acquiring customer. We're actually building like the same kind of machine for the engagement part, not just on page retargeting, but also CRM, similar to how we do it on the acquisitions.
The CRM was always it's no secret I come from the social casino background, and the CRM was probably the most important element of that entire operation. It's huge. But does that mean, because obviously we were talking earlier about the almost very, very, very advanced segmentation, like taking weather systems into account and all of that sort of stuff. But does that mean your creative changes based on weather patterns and that kind of thing then? Like, if you're targeting, I don't know, a region in the UK or whatever it may be, and you know that it's raining there and you want to get signups, you're pushing, sort of saying that, hey, it's raining, come and order your food, rather than going out and buying something.
Yeah, we used to have it as one of the only asset back in the day, but now it's one of our assets. We try to
Amazing.
automate, but I mean, it's of course it takes a few times to get it right because the weather data is
I can
also a bit
imagine.
shaky, right? So if you go to let's think about the UK. You have it's rain a lot, but then it suddenly stop raining, and then
Yeah,
the sun is shining,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
doing
Especially
it
through
at
summer,
like
yeah.
doing it at a global scale, where you have a team in Helsinki and Berlin pushing the ad line based on a certain data. And then you're pushing the ad line when you thought that, hey, it's actually raining now in Tel Aviv or in Athens. It's actually not.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
not.
it's
Yeah.
raining before, but it stopped. So that's what I'm saying. It's also like took a few turns for us to get the right fine balance. But that's not the only asset that we're doing.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of different kind of creative asset and concept that we try to make it work.
I
But
find that super interesting.
yeah.
All right, so what would you say the sort of the main challenges are at the moment for food delivery apps in terms of the marketing side?
I think, I mean, challenge for us and for me particularly is that we have moved beyond just a food delivery app. So the origin idea being a food delivery app, I think similar to some of our well-known competitors where they have the word "eat" on it.
Yeah,
You can figure out which one it is, and
I think I know.
it's nowadays become more of a super app because you build such a good network of merchants and courier.
Yeah,
Your logistic is actually become your competitive edge, your advantage.
yeah,
So
yeah,
with that in mind, you can actually compete with any other last mile delivery company. You
yeah,
can offering it from not just restaurant, you're offering it to retail, to grocery, to flower shop, to pharmacy.
yeah.
And for us now, that's why the engagement become even more important because
But
we
surely
already
that
successfully.
opens the door for companies to potentially compete with the likes of Amazon and that kind of thing, because that's always been the very, very strong point from ordering from Amazon is you get something same day or next day, with the
Yeah,
Amazon Prime side.
yeah. I mean, selection wise, it's very difficult to get any company to beat Amazon on the selection,
For
the
sure.
variety of stuff that you can order. But
Yeah.
speed, yes. So it's different. It's a similar. There's a certain overlap, but there's also a different use case. But the thing that I do believe as a mission for us is because from Amazon you can be in any part of the world. You order, you get it delivered either like same weeks or same days.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna be from. It may be from one of the warehouse in Netherlands, in UK, in China. But for us, like we actually want to get the local neighborhood
Yeah.
alive.
Well,
And that's a
that's
kind of
huge.
nice thing
Yeah.
about bringing this together, like because you order not just from, I can order this airport from Amazon, but I can also order it from a local stores that is about 2.5 kilometers away from my place. It's
Yeah.
maybe like maybe 5-10 euro more expensive, but actually I want to have that shop. I know the owner. I want to order from there. So that's a kind of nice thing about what we're doing comparing to ordering from just a general e-commerce store.
I love it. I love it. And how do you find it differs from the sort of standard? I mean, we've covered elements of it, but what would you say is the biggest difference from sort of standard IAP app marketing? Is there anything that stands out as being like a must do for food delivery that it doesn't exist for gaming or anything like that? Is there any huge changes?
I think the hyperlocal element is probably the most important element between app delivery app and gaming. It can also be the same as e-commerce. If you ever order from Zalando, you probably realize that the selections or a certain marketing is also very tailored for a certain region. That's
See,
very similar to what we
it's
do.
got me quite excited thinking about what you can do the other way now. Like,
Yeah,
how you could implement that into gaming to produce something interesting. It's fun. It's fun. I really like that.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the gaming company have done a similar thing. Like back then, when I was in Rovio, there's a live ops event for Japan. You actually customize the characters with the Japanese look and feel.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
a Halloween, you have a 4th of July event that you actually make you feel. So there's a certain element of localization, but I think the reality is that it's seasonal. But you don't try to go beyond it.
Yeah,
And if
for
you give
sure.
an extra mile from both the product and the marketing, they're actually going to be a bigger gain from what you can do.
Love it. I love it. All right, so I'm going to finish with a couple of questions that I like to ask everybody. I guess the first one is, what do you know now that you wish you'd known earlier in your career?
I would say how in my early career, I wish I would spend more time understand and working together with the product
Oh,
because
that's interesting. I like that. Yeah.
because I think this is very much relatable to a lot of the UA gaming or non-gaming apps people, because the reality is that I've been to the many cases that you are a marketing people, you have a product, the product has built it, depends on the company. They would say, okay, now marketing, do your magic, get
Yep.
me quality user. And
Yeah.
I'm not just saying user, I meant quality user. That's
Yep.
what the
Make it
definition is.
really successful. Yeah.
Exactly. Like if you have
You've
if you
had
find
no
a certain
influence
button,
over the product whatsoever, but make it successful.
and then for marketing, like you're supposed to do magic. If the product is like a average performer, they're probably not gonna be able to make it happen. But then
Yeah.
the same thing can apply, that if you have a great product, you also want to have a great marketing. And that's kind of going hand in hand with how I wish I could have done, is spend a lot more time speaking and understanding how the product is built, what is the product features, how do they design it. But actually now I spend more time understanding our operations than I ever been, because that's our product. I need to understand, like, how do we get enough career? What kind of selection do we have? What kind of venue do we have in that city? And the same can apply for gaming, because the last thing that you want to be is having a gap on the understanding from both teams. It needs to be, the product need to understand as much what marketing is doing,
Yeah.
and the marketing need to understand as much as what product try to do. And you give each other feedback, you give each other learning best practices, and you can actually make it a lot better.
You know what? It's funny, in some of the more advanced companies I've seen recently, a lot of the marketing guys looking for ways, and it's because they've been brought in early in the new game building process.
Mm-hmm.
They've been brought in early to help discover sort of lower CPI niches and that kind of thing that they could potentially build a product around, which I think is such an interesting. I mean, that's like, I've never seen that before, but it's such an interesting perspective to bring the marketing on board, even from working out what it is that you're going to build at the very beginning. I think that will make those kind of companies way more successful in the long term by having that connection up front. And it's exactly the same as what you're saying. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think for any gaming company, that's probably the thing that a lot of gaming companies have done it. I think for the apps itself, that's what it needs to be done. Like if you are C-level that start to hiring the marketing person, normally you start to think about, okay, I'm gonna launch a product, and then I'm gonna find the best marketing person that come in and do the magic. It should be the other way around. I actually want to have the marketing person who be with me designing the product, work on the soft launch, work on all of the early metrics and design from day one. So if that would be circled back for like more than 10 years ago, I wish that I would have been maybe even starting my career as a product person and before moving to marketing.
And then moving across. Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting. And then in terms of, so we've got a lot of people listening to this who are maybe just starting their user acquisition journeys and that kind of thing. Can you give any advice of where you collect knowledge from? Like, it's not, user acquisition isn't a university course that you can go and learn how to do it. Like, how have you picked up information over the years?
Well, multiple sources. I would say the biggest source is because I work with the best people.
I mean, it always helps.
It always helps. So you learn from them. I think the most known, is Eric Sorford. We cross paths in one of the company, but then I think that was one of his blog, Mobile Dev Memo, have been one of the first go-to for any performance marketer or UA person to start. It's not just about marketing. It's about understanding the data foundations. Like you actually can, like, I think you have a lot of good content, and you can even build your LTV model on Excel. Like that's a kind of knowledge that you want to have. Learning from different kind of well-known blog and podcasts. Hopefully this is going to be one of them, because that's going to set people from like early track of their career on understanding on what they need to focus on. And I think the last piece I learned from is going to some of the knowledge center from some of the attribution partner. I think that has been one of the good source, because that's always give you like a very basic ABC setup from, okay, how do I understand what to track, what to measure? Like doing UA is not about how do I run Facebook campaign. Actually doing UA is about how do I measure it. Yeah. If you would be a UA person hired in a new company, the first thing that you should do is not to spend money on Facebook and looking at Facebook, what Facebook is telling you, how good your campaign is. It's about your own attribution before you start to spend money.
Question everything.
Question everything.
Question everything.
And I mean, if you don't
everyone.
And if you don't have a good data that everybody can trust, you can never spend anything. You can spend $10,000. You won't be able to spend $10 million.
Yeah, for sure. Look, you are an absolute UA legend. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, this conversation, and one that I'm so interested in. Like, this whole movement out of gaming into other industries, I think, is becoming more and more common now. And, obviously other industries are understanding that gaming has sort of had this knowledge held within it for a long time, and it's now sort of filtering out into other industries, which I think is just amazing. So thank you so much for coming in to talk to us, and best of luck.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Adam.